The next lesson in 12.1 is ordering, or the next part of the lesson is ordering numbers, rational numbers, from least to greatest. And this isn't my favorite thing to do, to be honest with you, because it is a little bit tedious. In order to compare or order rational numbers, you have to have them in the same form most of the time, meaning either all fractions or all decimals. Now, if you make your rational numbers all fractions, they also have to have common denominators, which is an extra step. So my suggestion to you is to make all the fractions decimals, which you learned how to do in Monday's lesson, which is basically just to divide or use long division. Now, since I know that you guys love to cut corners and use the least amount of time possible when you're doing math, you can use some common sense with some of these, and I'll show you what I mean. So write down these numbers. Let's say we've got 2.1, and then I'm going to skip some space, -6/10, -9/4, -0.75, and 5/3. So if you need to order these numbers, and I guess I should put commas between them, from least to greatest, you can kind of use common sense at first. So, for example, you know the negative numbers are smaller than the positive numbers. So right now you can kind of look at your three negative numbers as to which one is the first number. I do think in this example I would make these fractions into decimals. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Now, again, you can kind of use common sense here. This one is -6/10. You could do 6 divided by 10 and do long division, but listen to it, -6/10. Would you agree that you could write -6/10 like this? Isn't that 6 in the tenths place? So sometimes you can kind of skip the work if you understand the relationship between the fractions and decimals. I'll do this one out for you. So this would be 9 divided by 4. 4 goes into 9 twice. That would be 8, difference of 1. Decimal point and a 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times. That would be 8, difference of 2. Bring down one last 0, and 4 goes into 25 times. Remember, if this is a negative fraction, this would be a negative decimal. So this -9/4 is the same as -2.25 right now. So now that I know what each of my decimals are, or each of my fractions are as decimals, I'm trying to underline here, we can pick out which one is the smallest number. So the smallest number is the one that is the farthest left on the number line. And so that would be the -2.25. Now, most math teachers and math series have you write the original form of the number, which is -9/4. So I'm going to practice that so you get used to that. I'm going to cross this out because I'm all done with it. So now my next number, I have two negative numbers left, -0.6 and -0.75. The one that is the next smallest is -0.75. And so when you're dealing with negatives, it's kind of the opposite of what you would think if it were a positive. This one's like owing 75 cents, whereas the 0.6, the -0.6 would be like owing 60 cents, because you could add a 0 at the end of that. So that's going to be your next number. I'm going to write it in the original form, which is -6/10. And now I only have two positive numbers left. I have 2.1 and I have 5/3. So if I wanted to think of 5/3, I could make it a decimal by dividing. Actually, why don't I do that? So I've got 5 divided by 3. 3 goes into 5 one time with 2 left over. Decimal point 0. 3 goes into 26 times. That would be 18. Bring down a 0. And do you see how we have a pattern that starts to arise? That means that this is the same as the decimal 1.6 repeating. And so now it's easy to compare. You have 1.6 repeating, or you have 2.1. The next smallest number would be your 1.6 repeating. I'm going to write it as 5/3. because that's the original form. And then finally, my very last number is 2.1. So this does require some work, guys. Again, it's not my favorite thing to do ever, but it is something that I need to teach you and you need to learn how to do. So I guess if I were you, I would start, I'm just going to do this one example problem. I would start with your negatives because they have to be the smallest and see if you can use some common sense or prior background knowledge to pick out which one would be the smallest. If you can't, that's okay. Then you go ahead and you do your long division and you make them into decimals and then slowly work your way up to the largest number. To organize your work, I recommend doing it like I did and crossing out your numbers as you go. I think that helps a lot. If you need help with these, please don't hesitate to ask for help. I know Big Ideas lets you check your answers as many times as you want because that's how I've set it up so that you can make sure you're doing these correctly. But if you guys are just guessing and like dragging and clicking and just trying to get the right one, you know, sure, you're kind of getting credit for it. But again, it's going to be really hard next year if, you know, if you're cheating yourself now. So please make sure you try these problems. Good luck.